Welcome to Learning to Glow, a show about wellness, skin health, and self-development. I'm your host, Jess. I'm a mom, entrepreneur, and skincare expert. I'm so excited to share tips on how to achieve healthy skin and bring amazing guests in the field of health, fitness, aging gracefully, and personal growth. Let's explore all different ways we can take care of ourselves as women, both inside and out, to truly shine. So let's get glowing. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. This week we have Joe Hoye, a fitness expert who works with women in their 40s and beyond. I love this conversation and hearing Joe's story about how a young man in his 20s started working with women in menopause. We talked about how we start to lose muscle as women in our 40s and how that percentage of muscle loss continues with each of our decade of life. He really shares some great information and ways we can help build this muscle for our health and longevity. And I asked for specific examples of ways we can incorporate more protein into our diet because I know that is a big source of confusion for a lot of women. And it's a really great way to help prevent more of that muscle loss. So we talk about protein a bit on this episode as well. We got a little woo at the end when we talked about our future selves, and it was really great. So make sure to stay until the end of this episode. You can check out Joe by going to my show notes and also find his quiz, his free quiz that we talk about in the episode. It will all be there in the show notes. You'll also see there in the show notes a discount code for Simply Just Skincare. If you have not taken advantage of my offer with this coupon code, I would recommend it. If you are interested in trying some all-natural skincare that really works, we have a coupon code for podcast listeners, podcast. When you check out, there's a little space for a coupon code. I'm here for any questions about skin and skincare. The seasons are now going to start changing up a bit, and a lot of my clients like to make little adjustments just as needed based on the climate and how that affects their skin, especially depending on where you are in the world. So I'm always here for you. If you have questions about that, you can go to my website, simplyjustskincare.com, to learn more and sign up for that offer. Make sure you send this episode to a friend if you enjoy it. And as always, thank you for being here and listening and supporting the show. I really appreciate it. And here's Joe. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Learning to Glow. We have a guest with us today, Joe Hoye. How are you? Welcome.
I'm doing good, Jess. Thank you so much. How are you?
I'm great. I'm so excited to have you on. You are a fitness expert, and you work with, we'll talk about who you work with in a minute, but people my age, like a lot of our listeners, and we're talking about like the things that we struggle with, you know, as far as our health goes, our fitness, our weight. But before we get into all of the things that we're dying to hear, you know, this is a new year. A lot of people are like, all right, I'm finally ready. I want to take this seriously. And it's very confusing out there. We have so many different voices coming at us, and they are conflicting voices. So I'm excited to have this conversation. But first, please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, absolutely. So number one, you're so right about how there's so much, I'm just going to say noise pollution out in the industry of like, hey, you need to do this, you need to do that. And I'm going to work really hard today to show everybody that I'm not that person, right? Like, I'm not going to say there's one right way to accomplish your goal. And I hope that by the end of the show, we can prove that, right? For you, for me, for everybody else. But enough of that for now. My name's Joe. I'm 30 years old. I'm from Vermont. And although you can hear it in my voice that I'm a man, and I just told you I'm 30, I've spent the last 7 years of my coaching career working with women 40, 50, 60 and older. I still do, right? I have learned a few things, or noticed a few patterns rather, in the past 6 or so months that have brought me to a few recent changes. But it doesn't mean that I'm not still largely helping that community. Outside of work, anything outdoors is what I love to do, right? Walks in nature and just stillness and calmness, or the complete opposite, right? Some adrenaline type things like skydiving, scuba diving, you name it. I like those, but just really anything in nature is my jam.
I love it. Well, I have to ask you, obviously, how did you start working with, you are a very young man. You are working with people for the past 7 years that are like my age. And how did you get there? Like, a lot of times people will find coaching, and I'm going to coach, you know, people like me. Like, what made you fall into this category of women and helping them?
Absolutely. Yeah. The elephant in the room that always needs to be addressed. Yeah. So, and we'll get to this part in a second, but transparently, I thought I wanted to help people like me. I think that God, the universe, a higher power just had a different plan for me. And so, really, it starts when I was 13 years old. Growing up at my mom's house, she was my only, not only, but strongest and most consistent role model in my life. And at the age of 13, she saw that, number one, I was going down the bad path, starting to hang with kids, doing dumb shit, making poor choices. And then also, in the other direction, starting to get picked on and bullied. And so, two very negative things for a young kid growing up. And she noticed that, and she tried to turn me to the gym as an outlet for that. And she was successful. She came home one night and she said, Joe, I know your homework's done. We're going to have dinner. After that, all the chores are done. Everything looks good on my end. After dinner, I'd love it if you came to the gym with me. I said yes, because as a tall, skinny kid that's unathletic, not very smart, not very good at school, that's the clear path to stopping getting bullied. Like, yes, I can gain muscle. I can gain confidence. Nobody's going to want to mess with me. So yes, mom, I'd love to go to the gym. I fell in love from that day forward. From 13 to 18, I worked out religiously, like 5 to 7 days a week, didn't miss a beat. But at the same time, I didn't gain any size. I just got taller and skinnier. The bullying didn't really stop. I didn't start feeling better about myself. Nothing changed. But eventually I graduate high school. Everybody goes their separate directions. That stops. I go into college and I start pursuing a career in the medical field. With that, I have to take courses on anatomy, physiology, kinesiology, nutrition, all things that teach me about the body and how the body reacts and creates change. So I became my first guinea pig. I started doing all the things that I knew would work and change a body. But at the same time, I was 18 and I was away from home. So I started doing what kids do, which is drinking alcohol, partying, and treating my body like crap. So that combination of things, right? Going to the gym, eating more food, but also partying, did create the weight gain I was after, but it also created the weight gain I was not after. And just for context, I was 5'11", I was 140 pounds. A year and a half later, I had ballooned up to 225 pounds. So I gained like 80 to 85 pounds in 18 months. And now I had a new problem. Still not confident, but now instead of being super skinny, I was just overweight and I still didn't like how I looked and I definitely didn't like how I felt. So I cut the partying, I dialed into everything I knew to be true, and I eventually reached the outcome I wanted. Right around where I am now, 190, 195 pounds, lean, I have muscle, I have confidence. And on summer break, I came home and everybody noticed. They're like, wow, Joe, what happened? Because we knew you when you were skinny. You were a little bit awkward, a little bit shy. We knew you when you were overweight on winter break. Still awkward, still shy, just overweight. Now, I don't even recognize you. And I don't mean physically, I mean how you present. And so I had enough people ask me for help after that I was like, wow, I think I have something here. I'm going to help, like I just said a minute ago. I'm going to help people like me either lose fat or gain muscle and build confidence. And that's it. So I started running these 8-week challenges, advertising online that, hey, this is where I was. This is what I became. I can help you do the same thing. And I got a ton of signups, but I never looked at the names until the very first day. I opened my laptop. I open up Zoom. I look at everybody that paid me $100 for my advice. And everybody looking back at me, nobody looked like me. They all looked like you. They looked like my mom. And I was like, oh, now what? Because I've only ever helped me. But at the end of that first call, number one, I had fun and all the ladies I was coaching loved it. We all had fun. We were smiling. At the end of that first 8 weeks, everybody got results. And I was like, wow, number one, this was fun. Number two, these ladies are showing up different in their life, on these calls, in their relationship, at work. I don't care if I thought I wanted to help people like me. This is what I want. This is fun. This is rewarding. This is what I'm doing. And so I've just been doing that ever since. But at the same time, I mean, God, I had 20 signups at $100 a piece. I made $2,000 off that. That's not enough to pay the bills. So I graduated college. I got my career in surgery. And again, getting pushed in this direction in my role. So I was a surgical technologist. In my role, it was myself and 6 or 7 other girls. Again, they took me, my higher ups, just the managers, the doctors, they took me and thought it was a great idea to take the one male on this team and put him inside the OB and GYN based rooms. And so I was like, well, here we go again, like getting pushed down this direction. I'm just going to roll with it. But something clicked in me and I was like, well, I have these ladies outside of work that I'm serving. At work, I'm forced into this room. I have no other option. I'm going to spend my time as well as I can, and I'm going to learn as much as I can. So while we were operating, I would lean into the doctor and be like, hey, doc, what did this lady do to get here? And what could she have done proactively to avoid being here? And so I was taking that knowledge from 8 hours a day plus on-call emergency surgery and applying it to my clients outside. And so now we have our three-part story. Number one, I want to give back to my mom because if she didn't put me in this path, promise you, you wouldn't be talking to me right now, Jess, and nobody would be hearing from me. So I want to thank her. And I understand that if I do still want to change somebody's life like mine, the best way to do it is actually to impact their role model because it's going to bleed into them. Number two, I have fun. Like I love getting on these shows with people like you and talking. I love working with my clients. And number three, I'm really freaking good at it.
Oh, that's amazing. It's like the universe was definitely had a plan for you when you think about it. That's just, I love that so much. So let's go back to when you first started working with these women, that all these women showed up and you assumed they would be people like you. Talk to us about how you helped them in the very beginning. Like, what did you start with? Because I'm sure a lot of people that were signing up for that day were kind of starting from ground zero. I don't know if they were active at all, but like if they were coming in at like, I have fat loss goals or whatever it may be, tell me where you started. And I also want to know, because I've read this about you when I was looking into getting the show done, you talk about diets. And I can imagine, people, especially of my generation, that's what you do when you want to lose weight. You go on a diet. And I'm curious if that was a common theme with the women that you were serving at that time.
Yeah, this is a really good question. And actually, Jess, you're going to be proud of it. It's one that nobody's ever asked me.
Oh.
So nobody's asked me like, Joe, what were you doing at the start of your career? I've said it publicly. I've said it in my podcast. I've said it to my audience inside of our Facebook group and stuff like that, but never on a show. And to be honest with you, Jess, I was doing everything wrong and I'm not proud of it. Right. But just like anything else, as we start something, we're not as good as we're going to be in 5, 10, and 15 years. So I knew what worked for me. What worked for me is something that I would never currently ask somebody to do. It was a massively restrictive calorie deficit that wasn't safe for people. It was too much exercise and it just wasn't sustainable.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that, yes, a portion of the reason that I brought in the clients that I did is because my mom was my role model and I spent time with her and her friends. So I learned to communicate in a way that resonated with them. I brought them in that way. But I think the other way is because I did kind of have a diet vibe or mentality in the beginning. And so they're like, wow, this sounds appealing. There's this young, muscular, attractive guy. I'm going to pay him. But now, my God, if you would compare 23-year-old Joe to 30-year-old Joe and the way we coach, and the way we speak, and the way we create change in people's lives, you wouldn't even think we're the same person.
Oh, well, that's a great answer because, a lot of people that I speak to are like, no, it's just, I hit the ground running and it was all perfect and everything was great. But that is the honest to God truth with anything, it could be literally anything in your life. You're never going to be amazing at it when you first start, but that's how you learn and grow. And I feel like the women that, especially if this was an 8-week program at first, they probably did see a lot of results because of the way you had it set up. But then as you evolved in your coaching and your programs, how did it change? Because that does work. That does work like for a little bit, but It doesn't work forever.
Yeah. So number one, I was running challenge after challenge after challenge, and I was starting to see patterns just because of how many people we were getting. So like you said, I mean, God, for those 8 weeks, you would get a before and after picture in 2 months' time. That was crazy. But it's because the approach was unsustainable and just really drastic.
Yeah.
But what I found from that is every once in a while, I would create a connection with a client in a challenge, and I really liked them. And they would crush it. And I'd be great. I want to see where they're at in 3 months. So I'd set this reminder on my phone, and I'd be like, check in with Jessica in 3 months and see where she's at. It was just a friendly, I care about this person kind of thing. Really, I was hopeful. I wanted to see them either right where they were or better, but I never found it, right? Oftentimes I would say, hey, Jess, man, you crushed it during the 2 months with me. I want to know where you're at now. She'd be like, Joe, I think I'm a failure. I fell off and I'm heavier than I was when I started. And the first time that happened, I was like, shoot, I feel bad for her. But the 10th time I was like, no, that's my fault. Because if these patterns are coming up all the time, this is my fault, nobody else's. And so I knew I had to evolve as a coach and with my education in order to evolve the results. And so I quickly switched from the way I was doing things to basing things off of their TDEE, so their total daily energy expenditure, which is always a guess, right? It's a guess of how many calories somebody burns on a daily basis in order to not gain weight and not lose weight, but simply maintain their weight. And then from there, we could create a program that is more customized to them. And that worked for a while. I certainly increased the odds of success rates, and that was great, but it still wasn't enough. I want to have a 100% success rate with the people that I work with. And so the biggest change for me, Jess, is when I realized that never in a million years would I change somebody's life permanently with group coaching. I could change it temporarily. I could give them massive amounts of momentum. I could prove to them that they're not broken and they're not the reason they're not successful, but I couldn't make it so that they never need another diet again, not through group coaching. And so I switched to one-on-one. That way I really, really get to learn about each and every person. I get to learn about their habits, the way they eat, how much they exercise, what their stress levels are like, the relationship at work with their partner, with their friends and family, and everything in between. And from there, now I don't just get to create a nutrition program or an exercise program. I get to create a life program, right? Something that they love, something that when they wake up, they don't hit snooze because they're not looking forward to breakfast or hit snooze because they don't want to do their exercise. Their feet hit the ground because they're ready for their day, because their day is going to freaking rock. And they know that at the end of it, they're going to be better than they were when they started every single day. And this is how I've been able to nail a 100% success rate for the people that actually commit to me as much as I commit to them.
Oh, I love that. So we're talking a lot about these women who are perimenopausal or menopausal as well. So what would you say, especially as you started to work one-on-one and really get to know them at a deeper level and like really customize what you're doing for them, what would you say were some of their biggest struggles when they first sign up?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, God, one of the really big common ones we see that most people won't believe until they experience it for themselves is that they're already eating the right amount of food to lose weight, but they're not losing weight, right? And so they're eating 800 calories sometimes, 1,000 calories, 1,200 calories, none of which is healthy or a good idea for a full grown woman. But they're eating it and they're not losing weight, which tells me that their body is in such a high state of stress that nothing they do will create weight loss until we remove the stress from their body and take them out of this survival state and bring them more into a state of thriving or homeostasis.
I feel like that's a common thing that I've heard about is a lot of women are not eating enough.
Mm.
And then another thing that I feel like they aren't eating enough of, I would say, some of the more important foods. So protein is a huge buzzword, but I know, according to a lot of the science out there, that protein is really important for this age group. And it's really setting us up for our really later years, in our 70s and our 80s and our 90s because of the function of protein. So is that something that your clients are open to, or is that like a challenge? Because I know that I've only been eating a certain amount of protein for about 6 months, and it was a real challenge for me when I first started, because I was like, I've never heard of anybody eating this much protein. And now it's like easy because you figure out what foods create that amount. But at first I was like, that's too much food.
How much are you eating?
So I eat 150 grams of protein.
Yeah, nice job. That's awesome.
Thank you. It's great. It's great. It's great. But at first I was like, that's insane. I'll never be able to hit that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's a number that is not uncommon with the ladies we work with. And you're absolutely right that protein is going to be necessary. And here's the deal. It's necessary because this is true for men and women, but more true for women. At the age of 30, you started losing small amounts of muscle every single year. Mm-hmm. At the age of 40, now you're losing 1% of your muscle mass year after year. At the age of 50, that number doubles up to 2%. And now at the age of 60, that number is going to double again. And now you're losing up to 4% of your muscle mass year after year. And so if you don't do anything about that, you are just creating such a nightmare instantly and long-term in your life. And here's why. Because we understand that muscle not only makes us look good, right? That's the thing that creates the tone and definition in our body. And when we look good, we feel confident. When we feel confident, life just goes better, right? But that's actually the least of our worries. Without muscle, You are going to be frail. You're not going to be functional. You're going to be weak. You're going to have to rely on other people to do simple things like bring their groceries in. um, when you get to your 70s, 80s, 90s, you're going to have lost so much that you're likely not going to live an independent life, right? And this is where I want people to be looking. I don't want them to look at what's going to happen tomorrow. I want them to look at the rest of their life. Number three, as you lose muscle, you lose the ability to eat normal amounts of food without weight gain. And the reason this is because muscle costs a lot of calories. In order to keep muscle on your body, you need to eat a lot of calories. And if you don't, the first thing to go is muscle. And so if you're losing it year after year, you're also losing your ability to eat calories without weight gain. And so that's why so many times when I talk to a woman 40, 50, or 60, they'll say, Joe, I don't get it. I've been fit my entire life. In my teens, I was an athlete. Maybe even in college, I was an athlete. 20s and 30s, I was playing sports and keeping up with the kids. I haven't changed anything. I still walk. I still go to the gym. Nothing's changed. But even though I eat the same amount of food, I'm gaining weight. Why is that? And it's because naturally you've lost muscle. And so you've lost the ability to eat the same amount of calories, but you've continued to eat the same amount of calories. So of course you're gaining weight. And it happens in the 40s, 50s, and 60s because it's like compound interest, right? This is something that we now know is happening in your 30s. You're losing muscle now, but it just happens so slowly that you can't tell until you can. And when you can, that's when the weight gain happens.
It's so important. It's so easy to shrug off and be like, you hear about it so much. It's like, protein. I mean, that's how I was thinking. I was like,
Yeah.
like come on, it can't be that. But it's really, really important. And I hope that if somebody's listening right now and not looking at that part of their diet, to do so, especially, as we're in this age group and even before, like you're talking about, like that preventative, get it in. If I knew this information 20 years ago, that would have been fantastic. But and for people who are like, okay, yeah, fine, I'll eat the damn protein. Give us some examples. Like, what do you love to recommend? Because you see all the memes. I saw a meme the other day that was like, going to quit my full-time job so that I can get my protein in. Like, give us some examples of what we can start with. And it's not as complicated. We make things really complicated, but give us some examples.
Absolutely. Before I do that, though, I want to just let people know that the best place to start with increasing protein is number one, knowing where you are. Mm-hmm. So don't change a thing for 2 to 3 days and simply track everything you eat and drink. Let's look at the number of grams of protein you get within those days, and that's where you're at. Now, likely you're somewhere around 60 to 105 grams of protein. We just heard Jess say she's eating 150. That's great. And that's probably where you should be too, roughly. It's always different for everybody, but it doesn't mean you need to be there tomorrow. So if you find that you're at 70 grams, do not think you're a failure because the next day when you are actively thinking about it, you're not at 150. Aim for 75 or 80. Aim for slight increases. And you know what? It's not going to take that long if you gradually increase your protein by 5 grams a day or a week to get up to 150. It's just not going to take long. You'll be there before you know it. But to answer your question, any meats are going to be great, right? The things we want to look at in meat are the fat content, right? Because the higher the fat, the lower the protein is going to be. So I like to personally grab like a ground meat, like chicken, turkey, beef, and I aim for like 90% or leaner. Okay. 93 is kind of my sweet spot. It's very easy to find at the grocery store. And I'm also very frugal. So that's why I buy 93, because like the leaner you get, the more it costs. And with the amount of protein I eat, it's like a small house payment. So
I know.
So that's why I stick to that. Shrimp's another amazing one. Fish is great. Really just animal. Animal is filled with protein. Aside from that, there are lots of other surprising foods that will have protein. Oats is one that most people don't think about, right? Oat is primarily a carb. It has more carbs than anything else. But inside of a cup of oats, there's 10 grams of protein. And so, number one, carbs aren't bad. You don't have to avoid them. You should actually be pulled towards them because they're going to help you as a woman 40, 50, 60 and older. But they're going to increase your protein too. And then I think the last thing on our list, the very last, and this is going to be surprising, is a protein supplement, right? Because if we look at the word supplement, it is there to enhance the benefits or results of something that's already working. And so we need to already be getting in our protein naturally through whole food sources before supplementing the rest of the way.
I really love that you said that, because for a long time I was like, I don't want to get my protein through supplementation.
Yeah.
I just want to get it through food. And I can tell you that I finally agree that it is not a bad thing to have a protein supplement.
No.
And in my head, I thought it was. And, having a really great protein supplement is what helps me get to that number like every single day. So I don't know if I could do it without it, to be honest, but it's not a bad thing. And find a great protein powder. Like I have a protein powder that I love, and I have a scoop a day, and it just really helps me get to where I need to be. And I think another thing that I didn't realize that is a real big incentive for getting your protein in it is how it keeps you full for so much
Oh yeah.
longer than like other food groups do or other macros do. And that was really surprising to me. I'm like, wow, like I can make it so much further if I start like, especially like breakfast, for example. I start my breakfast with a lot of protein, and I'm not hungry until lunch. Or before I'd be like, it's 10 o'clock. I need to get something to eat. I'm starving.
Yeah, I love it. And I'm the same way as you. I would have a really hard time getting my protein in if it wasn't for shakes. Um, on a daily basis, I'm getting about 130 grams of protein through a real food, but my goal is between 190 and 200 grams of protein. And
Oh,
so I'll
wow.
have two shakes a day. Each one of those shakes has a scoop of protein and 1 cup of oats. So my protein's roughly 30 grams. Like I said before, the oats are 10 grams of protein in there. So I get 40 per shake. That's 80 total. And then I get above my goal. But I mean, gosh, without it, I would have such a hard time. And so it's more than okay to use a supplement on a daily basis.
I love that. That's so great. So, speaking of muscle, and this, let's talk about this age group since we've been talking about women my age and
Mhm.
older. Let's talk about fitness a little bit, because if we are going to prioritize muscle, another thing that I feel, and I did this a lot of my life, heavy on the cardio, that was like my jam, and not prioritizing like weights and strength training. So is that something that is a big part of what they're doing as far as fitness goes?
Yeah, absolutely. You teed that one up for me. That is, it's absolutely necessary because without it, like I said, like we now know, you're starting to lose muscle at 30 and it's only increasing year after year. Protein is going to help, but without you signaling to your body that you need the muscle, it's gone, right? And the way that you signal to your body that you need muscle is by using the muscles you currently have, right? So that's going to come in the form of resistance training. And I don't want to scare people. That doesn't mean you're in the gym back squatting like I do on a daily basis. It means that you're using some form of resistance to work your muscles. But the good news is we're surrounded by gravity all day long and we use resistance all day long. So you don't need anything but your body. Simply do squats or push ups or sit ups or pull ups, and you are working against gravity, and that's plenty hard on its own. It will eventually get easy. When it does, we can increase to bands. We can still stay at home, build comfort there. And when that gets easy, we can use dumbbells or kettlebells or barbells or machines. And that's when we start to get into the gym. But the thing is, the problem that I see, Jess, is that women in your demographic have been told for so long that they shouldn't be strong. They shouldn't lift weights. They shouldn't take up space. They should actually be small and skinny and thin. And it's the worst thing for you, right? Because if you're thin now, imagine what you're going to be when you're 80.
Mm.
You're not going to be able to do a thing for yourself. And that doesn't sound fun to me. So we need to be strong. Women need to be strong. And God, I was just on a podcast yesterday and the host was saying, Joe, when I got strong, I got so much more confident because I realized I didn't need my husband to go and pick something up for me. I could do it on my own. It's like, yes, that's amazing. That's empowering. And I find the same thing's true with my clients too.
Yeah, it's so important. And I also think we've all been hammered with the information of if you want to be skinny, you have to just run or just
Mm-hmm.
do a lot of cardio. Like that's kind of, I mean, aerobics in the 80s and just like that kind of stuck with us. I remember I was in like my 20s and 30s, and I would do like 5 hours of like high intensity cardio every single week, but I had zero. Maybe one day I would take a strength training class, but it was
Sure.
just like zero fitness with strength. And that's just kind of how we were taught, and it's like the weight training. Yeah, like you said, you don't want to be bulky, You don't want to get too big. And that's not what happens at all. And I love how your examples are so important, because I also talk to a lot of women who are like, well, I don't want to go to the gym, and I feel intimidated. And they think they have to do this massive thing and spend an hour in the gym. Like you said, start with being at home. Like, you don't have to go anywhere. You can do so much with your own body. And then, I mean, I'm lucky. I have a home gym in my garage. Like,
Mhm.
my husband set up a gym. And so it's nice. But like, even when I didn't have that, I had like 5, 10, 15 pound dumbbells. And like, you can kind of set up things, especially if you don't feel comfortable, or if you don't want to go into that setting quite yet or at all. There's so much you can do at home. So I love that you mentioned that. I feel like if you're starting out with somebody who is pretty new to this idea of what to do as far as their workouts and what to do as far as what they eat, do you start, are you're still doing one-on-one, so do you start with them doing something pretty simple? Do you give them a structure or a time limit for their fitness, or is it kind of like they have to figure it out more as far as like the time and the actual routine that they're doing?
Yeah, no, I've really removed all the guesswork.
Okay.
When we work with people one on one, everything's done for them. It's like, hey, these are your goals for nutrition. In the very beginning, it's extremely simple, right? It's very close to what they're eating now. It's just a little stretch, and once they hit that, we stretch it a little more and a little more, and before they know it, they're perfect. But it doesn't feel like they're chasing after perfectionism because it's simply become a piece of their life. The same thing's true for exercise. It's like, hey, what are you doing for exercise right now? Oh, you're sedentary? Okay, let's just start with walks.
Yeah.
Oh, you're walking? Okay, let's start with one at home workout a week. And we'll go from there. Like the same thing's true with exercise. Before you know it, they're doing everything they need, but it's just integrated into their life. It's just natural. And this actually comes from a group setting first, because very rarely will we take somebody from never working with us at all to one on one.
Hmm.
I like everybody to get a taste of how I do things at a lower level with a smaller investment, and really find out if I'm for them, because I'm not for everyone, right? Nobody is. And while we do focus a lot on nutrition, we focus a lot on exercise, we focus more on what's up here in your mind and the behavior change and becoming the person that not only loses the 30 pounds, but keeps it off, right?
Yeah, I mean, that was my next question to you, because I feel like if you do not tackle the mindset when it comes to something, as, let's be honest, this is hard. If, when you're starting a weight loss, fat loss journey and you're changing, it's hard. And that's where the chatter up here comes. So I was going to ask you, like, what comes up for people? Yeah, like the first week is probably easy and they're motivated and they're
Yeah.
excited. You just sign up for something, or it's January 1st or whatever it might be. But then, you know, things get stressful or you have a bad day. Like, how do you deal with that? How do you help your clients deal with that mindset piece? Because I feel like that's the biggest piece.
Yeah. So in a group setting is a little bit different from a one-on-one setting, right? Because I'm addressing many people as opposed to one, but the foundation of it's all the same. I have three main practices that I like to use. Number one, I like to dive into the four dimensions that everybody has. They have their body, very self-explanatory, their physical body, how it looks, feels, functions, and its level of health. They have their being, right? Who they are inside of them, their mindset, their perspective, their spirituality. They have their connection, right? That's the relationships they have with themselves, their loved ones, their partner, their friends and family, and their coworkers. And then they have business, how they show up at work. Are they even in the job they want? Do they want to be a business owner? And we explore all that. And what most people don't realize is every single one of those is interwoven. If you aren't 100% in your body, you're going to show up like shit in your relationships because you don't feel good. You know, you missed out. You're probably not confident in how your body looks. And so that's going to show up in your intimate relationships. And the same thing's true for business, right? Like if you don't like your job, but you go to it every day of the week, you're going to leave feeling unmotivated. And if you're unmotivated, you're not going to work out. And if you don't work out, you're not going to achieve the body that you want, right? And so my goal number one is to bring all those up, because as we bring one, everything else increases with it. From there, this could get a little bit woo-woo for you. I don't know about your followers, but here we go.
We're
Um,
woo.
oh, cool. Oh, I love this, my people. So I believe that right now there is the current version of us, right? I am who I currently am. I do the things I do. I act the way I act. And because of that, I have the things I currently have. But at the same time, somewhere in the future, there is a version of us that has the things we want, right? It has the body we want. It has the house we want, the job we want, the partner we want. But because it has all those things, it acts differently. That version of us acts different. It shows up different. It talks different. It does different things. And if we want to become the person that has the things that we want, we better start acting like them today. And so what I'll ask our clients to do, either in a group setting or one-on-one with me, is write down everything they want in the future, everything that that future version of them already has. And then from there, I ask them, okay, great. Now you have all those. You have the love of your life. You have the dream job or the business you wanted. You've got the body you've aimed for 10 years, and you're confident in yourself. How are you acting now that you have those? And oftentimes they're kinder to people. They're more patient with themselves. They wake up a little bit earlier instead of bedtime and actually stick to it. I say, great. You better start acting like that today so you can become that person and get those things. And that a lot of times is a huge unlock.
I love that so much. I know showing up for our future selves and showing up now, acting in the way, like asking yourself, is this the thing that Jess in the future at her goal weight is going to be doing? So I think that's amazing. I'd love if you could share more about, you mentioned that you have more of a group program, that's a good place to start. And then your one-on-one. Tell us about what you offer in your program so that people can learn more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So before anything, I want people to take a quiz because I don't ever want to lead somebody down the wrong path. So I have this quiz. It's going to tell you the health of your current metabolism. And
good.
Based on that, we're going to figure out what's right. Because I have two options. I have the diet detox course, which is going to fix somebody's metabolism and give them the ability to lose weight again. Or if somebody currently has the ability to lose weight, I have Reshape and Thrive. And that's going to help them lose weight. Both of these are going to dive deep into mindset. But step one is always take the quiz. It's free. It's 2 minutes long. It's going to tell you where you're at. And from there, you can make an educated decision on what you want to do. Whether you want to take one of my courses or challenges and work with me, or if now that you know where you are, there's somebody else that you really like and you want to take their challenge, go do that. But the one that I'm really proud of is Reshape and Thrive. It's 4 weeks long. It's a group coaching challenge. You get access to me every single day. You get weekly live calls with me. I will personally build you a eating guide, an exercise guide, and then we're diving deep on everything you and I just talked about for the last 5 minutes. Everything up here in your mind. People will leave this challenge a different version of themselves. I'm not saying it's the end version, but it is a more developed, more evolved version that is a whole lot closer to where they want to be inside body, being, connection, and business.
Oh, I love that. Okay, so you're going to have to email me the link to your quiz, and then I'll make sure I post that in the show notes. And is there anything else you want to share with us today before we say goodbye?
God, that's it. I think we covered a lot in a little bit of time.
Yes. Well, Joe, it was such a pleasure meeting you. I'm so excited that you were able to share all of this. Some really great takeaways in this conversation, and I just appreciate you being here.
Awesome. Thank you, Jess. It was great.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode. Please subscribe and review so we can reach more people who want to learn to glow alongside us. See you next time.